So here's Jazz Piano Daily 129. This is part 3 in our series of how to easily form any chord. So in part 1, we went through talking about the major scale pattern and forming simple major minor triads. In part 2, we were talking about how to take that scale pattern and apply it to 7th chords. Now we're going to talk about our chord qualities and chord symbols. All right, so in this chart, there's a lot there's a lot to unpack here. So let me again, let's break this up into some columns here, right? So make it a little bit easier for you to see. All right, so the first thing is, what is the common chord symbol? Now, there's something to understand about chord symbols that's really kind of interesting, but also frustrating. Western music, like Bach, Beethoven, stuff like that, that written form of music has been around for hundreds of years. So it's had a lot of time to really work out all of the kinks and codify a very set, way of writing out and notating music. Okay? When it comes to chord symbols, that's a relatively new, like within the past 100 years or so, idea. Really came about with jazz and blues and rock music. So those chord symbols are still kind of new and under development. That means that one set of players will write a major 7th chord one way. Another set of players will write it completely differently. Now, there's also another side to this as well, is that sometimes when we have a major 7th chord, there's also many different ways of writing out the tensions in that chord, and then how you want that chord to be played, the inversion, all of that, right? So for right now, we're just going to kind of step back and just deal with some basic, more generalization of chords. All right, so right here on the major 7th chord, you see that we have these different ways of writing out that chord symbol. You might have a triangle 7, MA7, capital MA7, MAJ7, or just a capital M with a 7th. Now before we move on, let's talk about the difference between a chord root and a chord symbol. Let me write out a couple. I'll just write them over here in the right-hand side here. So if I do something like this, right? Actually, let me not do that one. Let's do this. Okay? So we see that, and we would read that as, okay, C major 7th, right? But then when we do something like this, this gets confusing to a lot of students. A lot of students will look at this and they'll think, oh, that's a B flat 7. It's not a B flat 7. It's a B flat 7. So I'm going to explain to you how I would explain to my students how to be able to find and suss out the root of the chord versus the chord symbol. So this is what I tell them. Anytime you have a letter with a sharper flat right after that letter, that sharper flat usually goes with that letter, okay? It always goes with that letter, all right? So if I saw something like C sharp, it's kind of a hard sharp to write, right? 7, that C sharp goes with this, with the C. The sharp goes with the C. So it's a C sharp, that's the root. The chord symbol is 7, okay? Let me just do this. All right, so let me write out another one here for you. Let's do this. E flat, okay? So E flat MAJ or MA7. Now some students might read that as E flat major 7th. And obviously that doesn't make any sense, but that doesn't stop students from unfortunately doing that sometimes. So I just took it away, but you'll remember it. It's E flat major 7th, okay? So remember, when you have a letter and a sharper flat right next to it, that's the root of the chord. So there are two parts to a chord symbol. There's the root, and then there's the chord symbol, okay? So the root is the letter or the letter and the sharpened flat, and the chord symbol is everything else. That's what all of this is. These are all of your chord symbols in here, right? So all we would do is we would throw a root in front of this. So like if we did, say this one, we want that +7. So that would be C plus 7. The root of C plus 7 is the chord symbol. All right, so let's go through these other symbols. For minor seventh, it'd be a minus sign 7, min 7, mi 7, or little m 7. The little m and the big M, I hate that chord symbol terminology. In fact, the one here at the very beginning, this is my preferred chord symbol. I don't use little m7 because I think it's so easy to get confused with the capital M. So you see like that A little m7, I think that someone could read that real quickly in the bandstand and then read that as a capital M. Now, typically, if it's written out by software, you could tell the little m from the big M. But the thing is, when you have a handwritten chart, a lot of times people are writing stuff quick. I have seen many charts in which it'll say C M7, and you think, oh, it's a C major 7th. No, it's a C minor 7th, all right? So, and then when you start playing majors and minors at the same time, they don't sound all that great, although kind of interesting. All right, so the next one, dominant 7th. When you see 7, all right? So B7, A flat 7, D flat 7. Now, like I said, there's also ways in which we could start to kind of reduce our chord symbols down. You can kind of think of like the lowest common denominator thing that we did in math, right? So we could have like a 9 or a 13, and oftentimes we could just play that as a regular dominant 7th chord. So if you saw a chord symbol that said C13, right? You can just play it as a C7 chord. What they're saying is that you're adding the 13th in there, okay? But that's usually because the melody is the 13th, and so they write C13. But the reality is you just play it as a C7 chord. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Diminished 7th, the circle with the 7 or DIM 7, and here are some written examples. And again, I haven't mentioned this, but this is kind of duplicated from yesterday, right? The 7th is down how far. So this is just another way, kind of helps you to be able to see those as chord shells, right? Minor 7 flat 5, here's your chord symbols. Minus sign 7, flat 5, min 7 flat 5, okay? And then finally augmented, right? So the main part that you really want to kind of understand from this lesson is make sure that you understand the difference between the chord root and the chord symbol. Now, you might think, what does it really matter? Well, first of all, if I, again, have this as a example, whoops, this example just works great because I've had so many students over the years get this one wrong. They read that as B flat 7. So, oh, that's a B with a flat 7 chord. Well, when it's really supposed to be this, you can hear what happens if the guitar player's playing one chord and you're playing another one. Doesn't sound so good. So there's your B flat 7. So remember, again, you have two parts to this. This is the root, the B, and the flat. Okay? That's your root. This is the chord symbol. So that's the root, and that is the symbol. Okay? So the 7th is the chord symbol, and the B flat is the chord root. All right, so that's what you should be getting out of this lesson, and then also see if you could find these chord symbols in sheet music. All right, so take a look at some of the previous Jazz Piano Daily sheet music. Look for these chord symbols. All right, I'll see you guys in the next lesson. To get the first 45 pages of music for free, just go back to jazzpianodaily.com. If you liked the video, please be sure to click the like button and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. To watch the rest of the lessons in this series, just click on the playlist to the right of this arrow. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.